The Hyperion is undoubtedly the reigning king of all Skyblock items, because every single player will need one eventually throughout the Skyblock journey due to its absolute insane versatility and general damage, and it makes it needed in nearly all situations throughout the game. And since you're watching this, you probably already know all this, and so I won't really keep going on it, and what you're here for is how you should go about obtaining it. How you will be able to get yourself a fully scrolled Hyperion and a full mage setup with it. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so right before we begin, I just wanted to mention I will be uploading a ton more this month because I need to hit 2.5k by the end of the year, because if I do, I kind of made like a deal that I would get my friends G-Drag. So yeah, please like and subscribe. It just means I'll be making better content as a whole. Yeah, back to your video. So this isn't going to be your first step in your progression, but this is just a general note you should keep in mind whenever you're grinding for a hype, and that is that any money that you spend on any setup, all that money is in fact towards your hype, because in the end you're going to want to liquidate a lot of your items, and with that means that you'll be making, so all of the money you've ever made is just going to go into that hype, so you don't have to worry about investing into like other setups, because all in all, when you invest into another setup, you're investing into a hype. The hype isn't an item, it's more of like a big investment that you're making. So just keep that in mind whenever you start like a money making method, or whenever you start like getting into something. So the very first thing you should be doing when you're trying to get a hype is to find yourself a nice, stable money making method. Because stability and having a good money making method to rely on means that you have the amount of money you need to get into other setups, and this generally means that you won't have to be grinding like lower money making methods to get yourself a decent setup. And of course, what I'm talking about is you either getting into mining because it's got a good amount of money per hour and it's pretty reliable, or if you're slightly more different, you could get into rift methods such as like carrot farming and yeah, you know, like Vampire Slayer, but I don't recommend that as much, even though it takes a lot less setup and a lot less time. It's just not as nice, and you can't really like have that as an investment, because with mining, the more you put into it, the more you'll get back. And as I said with my previous point, everything you put into it is basically what you get for your hype. So the more you put into it, the closer you are to getting a hype. So of course, with mining, you'll need a good amount of setup time, about 2 or 3 weeks to do your powder mining and hot M7, but then after that you've got a good stable money making method which you can base the rest of this video off of. And talking about other money making methods, that leads me on to RNG methods, which is in fact my next point. So after you've chosen a nice stable money making method, it's time to get yourself into an RNG method. And that is generally going to be some sort of combat method which you can make either huge amounts of money with or generally have a little bit more fun with. So with these RNG methods, you should either be choosing dungeons or some sort of slayer such as Voidgloom, because if you do Voidgloom, then you'll also have the requirements for a Terminator, which I'll also be making a guide on about like tomorrow. So generally, if you have a good large RNG method, then you have a good amount of chances to drop some big money, such as if you're doing dungeons, you can get scrolls, handles, and all those sorts of things, as well as getting a couple requirements that you'll need to get a Hyperion. So usually after you go into mining, it's time to get into dungeons, so then you definitely have that F7 comp when you eventually get your Hyperion. So after you do F7, usually what I would do is, after I've gone into F7, I would just sell that setup again and then get into Voidglooms. Because as I said in the beginning, and I'll say it again, if you any money like you put into any setups is towards your hype. So if you swap it around, it should be still fine. And if it makes you progress faster, then isn't that just kind of better in the long run? So after you do that, you can get into Voidglooms, or if you don't want to, you can stay with dungeons and make a little bit more RNG, like money with that. So if you think if you like secrets or like doing dungeons, just get into that, because that will be your main RNG method, while mining is still going to be your stable one. But then again, if you want to get a term quickly right after you get your hype, and you choose to get one, well then go to E-Man, because you can still get Judgment Cause, And as soon as you hit combat 22, do a little bit of Kudra. You don't have to have a hype for like the first 3 tiers, and get yourself some Burning Crimson or something like that. Then you can start doing a little bit of Void Gloom and getting some cores. And that will also mean that you've unlocked a Terminator, which will help you a bit later throughout the game. So of course, yeah, you just want to have another RNG method, generally just to make some more money and to have a little bit more fun in Skyblock. And this leads me on to my next point somehow. I don't know how. It's kind of cool. All these like points are linking together. So throughout the video, I've skimmed through this point a lot, and that is, of course, that you should enjoy what you're doing when you're grinding for a Hyperion. All in all, it is one of the longest grinds in the game, and it's not fun if you don't find something fun to do during it. And that's why you've chosen to have an RNG method, or that's why I've chosen you to have an RNG method. Because mining is technically better, but then as a whole, are you having fun mining glass for 60 hours straight? No, I don't think you are at all. In fact, it's really boring, and after a bit you get incredibly bored of it, and then Skyblock's just generally not fun. And since this grind is so long, you don't want to just be not having fun for an incredibly long time in Skyblock. And that's what I see a lot of people doing right now. And that's why everyone in early game is basically quitting. Everyone in mid game is also kind of quitting if they don't have a hype. And it's just not fun because you don't know what you're doing if you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you don't want to be doing that, because after that you'll find that you also don't have the requirements for everything else. So go find something that you enjoy, and after you get your hype, it means that you can enjoy it more. So you've also already got like a small bit of like expertise in that field. So go and find something fun, whether that be an RNG method, Rift if you're weird, or like even farming if you're just I don't know if you like farming, why? So this point is kind of contradictory to my previous ones, and generally just use your common sense with this one, but don't change setup too often because it kind of means that you won't be getting into anything too much. I mean, if it's fun, then that's great, but you won't be making as much money or progressing as fast to get yourself a Hyperion as quickly as possible, and that just basically means that a hype is kind of getting away from you, and you could have been taking that time to get like a bit of a hype as well as some other requirements. So, I mean, if you're trying to get a lot of requirements, then that's great, but then I guess you're probably not doing the full skill like properly. So, let's say you start fishing for a little bit to get into fishing for money, and you get yourself to fishing 27. Well, yeah, great, you got fishing 27 now, but you haven't made any money with that, and you've just spent a bit of time on just fishing for like basically no reason. So unless it like actually helps your cause, or you're going to take it for a bit longer than like fishing 27, of course, then don't get into it because it's not going to help you in the long run, and generally you can do that later after you've gotten your Hyperion. So this point is probably something you're already very good at, and that is of course thinking less. Because if you think less, generally when you're getting a hype, you won't be as stressed to get it. And of course, it means that you won't be overthinking everything and getting into too many things at the same time, like I said before. It's good to multitask, but you can't be multitasking too many multitasking things at the same time, or else none of them will be good, and you'll just be stressed out for the entire time you're grinding your hype. So of course, don't overthink, or else you won't be having as much fun when you're grinding for a hype. If you find it fun, then great, but yeah, just don't overstress everything, you'll be fine. You'll get that hype one day, and honestly, I don't really see a reason why you should be thinking too much. If you ever need to check how much money you have as a whole, and if you can get a hype already, just use Skycrypt. It's just really easy, and honestly, why don't you do it? Funnily enough, this is probably one of the actual progression tips, and that is the final stretch. So after you hit about 1.3 bill net worth, sell absolutely everything apart from your accessories because you'll need those later for your mage setup. And of course, start lowballing. You know I'm going from here. And generally, yeah, you can make a couple 100 mil in about a week. And just learn some markets, watch some videos, and that just makes it so you really won't get scammed as much. And you know a little bit more before you start lowballing. And yeah, really, after you get yourself to 2.1 bill, then you've got enough for a mage setup, misc items, a pet, and finally, of course, your Hyperion. Get your accessories to about 600 magic power, and finally you won't be a Hyperion on, and you actually can play the game now. So now that you've got yourself a hype, you have unlocked the rest of the game. Congratulations. Now you can go outside, touch a little bit of grass, and you finally entered mid-game. Now, like, yeah, just go learn some Kudra game sense, because then I can actually find some people to do Kudra with. For some reason, Party Find is really slow. Anyways, I guess I'll see you on the next one, and that's going to be like a Terminator guide, so look out for that.